everybody, welcome to David Christopher's YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing something I don't know that we've ever really done it before. We're going to be working with real flowers, which is very different for us because we don't sell these, but it is my son's prom day, so he is going to be going to prom and I'm going to be making a bouquet for his prom date and a boutonniere for him that is one of those pocket square boutonnieres. Alright, and now I've got some spray roses, so we're doing the exact same thing to them. They're already, for the most part, about the height that I'm going to use them. Sometimes you can just cut the ends at like a 45-degree angle if they've been out of water for a little while, just to try to get that water back into their system, stop that airlock from going on. And they'll hopefully survive a little bit longer, but we're just cleaning the foliage up on those and getting those ready. So now we're ready to start assembling our bouquet. I've got some hydrangeas that have little water on them, so I'll probably leave that water on them until I'm really ready to cut everything off at the bottom and stick that in some water. I've got my spray roses, I've got a little bit of heather in this cream color, and then I've got my moonbeam roses that have this great open combination. So really, they're almost like two roses in the center that are trying to open. So as they open, they're going to both spiral opposing each other, which is going to make them open really beautifully. And we're ready to get started. So I'm going to show you kind of the way that I was taught to do this. Really, the only thing I was taught to do was just put it together with floral tape, which is the old-fashioned way to do it. A lot of people now like to just zip tie them. But we're going to start with a center rose, and then we're going to lay another rose, and we're just going to work our way down a little bit each time. So we're just going to go, half an inch down, and then we're going to grab both of these, and we want our center rose to stay kind of centered, and our other rose to be somewhat of an angle. We're really going to create a little bit of a spiral as we go. So we keep adding, and as we add, we're going to add always going around in the same direction, and that's really what's going to give us that spiral look. And also, if you do it correctly, which I don't always do, and then you cut it all the same length, you can almost stand it up on end. Once you cut that completely off, the spiral actually helps it hold its shape and can stand up. So we're just going to add a few of these roses. We want to mix in some other things at the same time. So, we started with this, but we're really going to be able to go around with, I'm going to snap this one off just because it was so low, it was going to be inside the bouquet, and we don't really want that. But we're still layering even the spray roses in the same direction. We want that angle on it, and it will hold everything better in place like that. Get a little bit of my heather cut open here. Forgot to do that. And it's got floral, but it's also got a little bit of foliage in it. So we're going to be using some of both. We're going to not take all of that for granted. I may use some of that in my son's little pocket square floral that we're going to make. But if it's going to be below my flower line, really anything below this point, I'm going to snap that off most of the time just because it's unnecessary and it's going to make it too thick. Once we've gotten that one's this rose, I'm kind of culling toward the end just because the stem is a little thick on it. And we want to make sure that we don't make these all exactly the same height. It gets a little boring if you're completely redundant on them. So just keep that in mind as you go around. You just have to keep one hand going pretty much all the time. And we're going to add a couple more spray roses into this. And you can, like, I'm going to move this bloom around so I can tuck a little spray rose in that other side. Usually, if you're at this stage, you can move some things around. The floral tape's going to hold everything in place for you. And we're going to keep going with our roses. Get some of our heather in. And heather and some of those other smaller flowers, because of the size of them, if you miss a spot, if you feel like, you know what, I really wanted one right here, if you thread this through those blooms, you might have to pull it apart a little bit, but if you thread that down through there, it'll come out, and I've still got my angle. As long as I'm going with the stems, I can tuck that in and keep going. And we're just going to keep going around and around and around, so we'll probably fast motion this for your enjoyment because it's not as much fun to watch me just keep going with this. But putting that angle at on the roses really does help with two things. It helps with the structure and just making sure everything stays in the same direction, but it also helps you not snap a rose head as you are placing them in, because the narrow part of the rose is really from the bloom to about midpoint on the stem. They get thicker as they go down. So if you really are just like trying to put this in straight and you get this pretty big, as you try to bring those stems together, you can snap that rose head clean off. Even on like a thick one like this, like you're pushing that in, that's a whole lot of bend in that rose head. And that's very likely to just snap off. And you don't want that to happen in the middle of a prom or a wedding ceremony. That's really embarrassing. Now I've got a layer of my roses in, and I'm going to add my hydrangeas in. I'm going to pull these leaves off. They're going to absorb some extra moisture that I don't need them to, because hydrangeas are more, I say finicky. They're more, they need more moisture to survive longer. So like I said, I'm going to keep these water bags on them so that they can stay alive a little bit longer. But I also don't need these leaves. The leaves will try to soak up some of the moisture, and we're not really going to be able to see them. So really no point in hanging on to those. Hydrangeas are beautiful. They're slightly fragile, and they are a little bit peculiar with their water. I have had them nearly die on me, and to bring them back to life, had to submerge all the heads, you know, right side up, but submerge the entire head in a bucket of water to get them to come back to life. Just a little bit, because if it's 105 degrees in the south here, sometimes those hydrangeas do not want to live. The bags of water on them make them a little hard to spin at this point, so we're going to kind of spin this in air upright, because if you do it the other direction, the weight just really unbalances the whole thing. Then we're going to go back to our roses, and we're going to fill in that gap in between our hydrangeas. I may actually add a spray rose in here before I add. It'll break up those taller roses, the moonbeam rose, if I add the spray rose in there so that I don't get all the moonbeams stacked on top of each other. Now I'm going to fill in with some of my heather. Like I said, you get everything else in there. These are easy to go in and add. Adds just a little bit of a wildflower touch to it. Breaks up some of the roses. We just want to make sure we kind of evenly distribute those. One little spot where I feel like I probably need to thread a heather in, so I'm gonna pull it down there. Sticks in perfectly, no problem. And then we're pretty much done with the bouquet. I could fill in a little bit here and there. Sometimes I'll go in and add just a little bit more spray rose around the base, but I really don't want to make it any larger, so anything we do at this point, we're really going to make this really tight to the bouquet, so that angle really helps in making sure that it kind of goes underneath everything else. And I will use these spray roses that I'm pulling off for Isaiah's pocket boutonniere when I get to that. Okay. So as you can see, maybe, without my hydrangea stems here, if I start cutting all of this off, if I can get them to a similar length, making a little bit of a mess here. I'm frying that stem in my glue pan. But I can just about, maybe take a little bit off the center here. You can just about make these stand pretty even once you get them leveled off on the bottom. That's usually a good sign that you made the bouquet the proper way. Works a little bit better if you add a lot more to it. It just gives you more stems to give you some structure, but it gives you that sense of you made the spiral correctly, because everything's standing up. And if it's not, if everything's straight down, it's really hard to get it to stand up properly. So I'll wrap this in some ribbon and we'll move on. Okay, so now we're going to move on to a pocket square, which would be kind of here in this area, and I'm told that he wants to do like the pocket square thing when the flowers go across instead of the standard boutonniere, and I'm told those are popular now. I've never made one, so we're going to engineer one on the fly. I don't know if this is how most people do it, but this is how I'm going to do it. So I cut a piece of cardboard that should fit down in his pocket. If not, if we get home and I need to trim some off, I can always trim some off of the cardboard. Great thing about the cardboard being corrugated like it is I don't know if you can see the little wavy lines inside of the cardboard, but those are going to be a little bit of our structure. So I'm going to be able to trim, you know, some of my pieces here to fit down in that. And I'm really just going to hot glue it. Hot glue's taken over a lot of the corsage boutonniere kind of things, as they just glue it together kind of last minute to help it stay alive, and then you're ready to go. But we're going to make this, you know, very small, so all these little tiny glue pieces, really handy that I have that corrugated in there, because that's going to help it stay where it's supposed to be. So I don't know if this is the way everybody else on YouTube or in florists or wherever people make these things does it, but it's how I'm doing it. So we'll see if it works. Surely it will. So we'll just keep gluing until we've hidden all of that. And part of the cardboard will go down inside of the pocket, and we'll just have some things that hang over. So I'll use some of the roses that actually hang over the side, like this one. And then as it opens up, especially since it's not got its water source anymore, it's actually going to fill out some of that space over the cardboard and should be good to go. Gotta make sure it's narrow enough to go in there. I feel like I'm performing surgery on this tiny stuff. I'm used to doing big things, not minuscule. A little full in there, but you know, we're getting there. Just a little pocket of roses. I think it's supposed to be posies or something. Well, I snapped that one, so won't be using that one. getting a little more difficult the more I get in it, just because of the space available. But these little heather flowers are going to be great because they're a little more limber than regular roses, and they're going to cover some of that base up for us. And they're a little bit hardier than roses, so they should stand up. Okay, pocket full of flowers. So I'm going to go back to my bouquet now, and I think I'm going to add some of this bear grass, which I was hoping for lily grass, but I ended up with bear grass. I was planning to braid some lily grass, but it looks like I'm just going to be twisting bear grass because it doesn't braid the same way as lily grass. But we're just going to twist this up a little bit and then fold it so we get almost a braided look into it. And then we're going to add that into our bouquet in a few spots. And bear grass, lily grass, great things. They're very resilient, so not worried about them having water as much. They'll stay pretty much in that shape that I put them in, if I can get the tape on them correctly. And we're just almost making a collar out of our bear grass here. So just twisting that, pulling it down. If you've got a short piece, it's best to pull that out because it's gonna pull out of the twist and not work great for you in my experience. I had one do it just then. So when that little one comes out like that, the best thing to do is cut it off really short. So we effectively make a little collar around our bouquet here. I've got one stray one, snip that. But that works really well just to give it a little design, and then we can go in and, like, after the fact, if you decide, I'll show you how to add it to the middle of the bouquet if you want, is we're going to get a smaller end piece here, because that's going to make a little bit smaller loop for us. And we'll tape it in the middle. I'm going to use a leftover stem from something I was previously using. Cut that off. I'm going to slide the stem up inside of that. Finish my floral tape out. Onto my stem. And you just have to find a good place to place this in here. One more, I think I'll be done with my pear grass. Just to even it out on all sides. Get the dead ones out. Short one. I'm going to cut my dead pear grass ends out because they're not the prettiest part of the bouquet for sure. So the last thing we're going to be doing is adding these little crystal pearl jewels to some of the roses, and really what we want to do is just stick these straight down into the center of some of these roses. I'm usually picking the, I don't necessarily want to do this for the spray roses because they're a little too small for it. Sometimes you can snap right through the stem. So we're going to go into the center of these moonbeam roses just to give them a little pop of bling. I'm told prom girls like their bling, so that's what we're doing. Since I had some flowers left over, I'm gonna make Jen a little vase of flowers. I have my hydrangeas. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna cut this to a fairly short height, a little bit shorter. And I'm gonna use those leaves from the hydrangeas to actually help hold some of my other pieces in place. So if you've got hydrangeas, they're a great thing to use for this particular style. So we're going to let those stand somewhat up. And then we're going to start with our roses. Go a little lower, some a little higher. We're basically going to build a little nosegay out of our roses and hydrangeas.